Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paripurajaka Kacharya Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Raj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kundigiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Welcome to all. Especially welcome to Meena Mataji and Hare Krishna. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakrun Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Goda Mahyam Dadhati Shapadantikam Vande Hang Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Stam Sadivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagat Prate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostude Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Again, welcome to all. And I wonder what topics are bubbling up for tonight's discussion.
I have a question, Maharaj, regarding a text in Srimad Bhagavatam
Mm-hmm.
and cross-reference to Shikshamrita. Are you want to listen to it, or you want to take my question regarding the
Well,
contribution? But let's
let-
wait and see what else everybody wants, and then I can get back with
no,
you.
no, let's go for it.
Okay.
Let's
So,
hear what the text is and what the question is.
okay, so this is from the Shikshamrita, and what really propelled the question was, it says the original unmanifested form of material nature is the source of all material things, and the source of even that subtle material nature is the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Mm-hmm.
And this is referencing a Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, verse 57. And the question that came up from this is the original unmanifested form of material nature, is this Durga?
No.
Oh, it's not.
What's being referred to here is that material nature. This is explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Adi Lila. Material nature has two forms. One is called pradhan, and one is called prakriti. Pradhan means the inactive stage of material nature. We hear that the Lord glances over material nature and sets nature in motion. So before the Lord, receiving the Lord's glance, the material nature is in the form of pradhan. Pradhan means all the ingredients are there: earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. Everything is there, but nothing's in action. Everything's in equilibrium, in stasis, in a state of inactivity. Then the Lord glances over material nature, and his glance activates material nature. The material nature in its active state is called prakriti. So these are the two aspects of material nature, two forms of material nature. Yes, material nature is represented by Durga, but this is the specific, when we hear about the unmanifested form of material nature, that's what's being referred to, the pradhan. This is also discussed by Lord Kapil Dev in third canto, and in other places as well. Does that?
Yes. Yes, that partially answers my question. Thank you so much. Now, this pradhan, as you know, in our scientific understanding, as limited as it is in modern age, it is stated that the Big Bang Theory and so on, this is coming from a void. But apparently this vast void, from the latest discoveries of dark matter, it turns out that dark matter is actually what's the foundation, or like the womb, W-O-M-B, the womb of all creation. So when I came across this article, it's something clicked in my mind that, and this is where I'm getting at, is this material nature, is this pradhan analogous to a womb, being that it's black and dark, and by the glance of the Lord, this womb is activated, and then it gives birth.
Yes, the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, Mama yonir mahad brahma, tasmin garbham dadamyaham, sambhava sarvabhutanam tato bhavati bharata. This is maybe 14th chapter. The Lord says that this material nature is exactly like the womb, mahad yonir, and tasmin garbham dadamyaham. I create pregnancy in that womb. Sambhava sarvabhutana, and that pregnancy creates the possibility of sarvabhutana. Sarvabhutanam can mean all living entities. It can also mean all the material elements. The material elements also don't manifest themselves, don't become active without the glance of the Lord. So yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you, Lali Prasad Prabhu. And what other questions might we have this evening, I wonder, or comments or discussion topics?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranams. I have many, many questions on this, but I know I may only be siphoned a portion of time, so I have to be thoughtful. I guess I love that this question was brought up, especially about, say, Maya, Durga, in one sense, the material energy. And without going into too much detail, I'm very, very curious exactly to what extent how Maya influences our lives daily, and Durga's role. And the reason why, I guess specifically, if I could formulate a question properly, is that when you look some other religions, when they don't have a clear understanding that there are many different, I would say, faiths or beliefs, or ideologies within Hinduism, they very much like to boil everything down that the Hindus believe is based on karma. However, I do find, even speaking to devotees, many things are just explained. It's your karma. It's your karma. Now, then it's the understanding that it becomes this, everything that happens to you, everything inauspicious, is a result of karma. Now we understand, once you take to Krishna or God, then he has a hand in your life. There's a whole nother discussion of how, even for us, say, everyone here has most likely taken to God consciousness in some way, shape, or form in our past lives. And I mean, what to say, if we fell, then we were always then we were pure devotees. Then even in this life, say, I didn't find Krishna consciousness until a few years ago, but I can say in my life that there were divine interventions that if I sit and look back, I was like, oh my gosh, God's hand was in my life here and saved me here. Say freak accidents, but I wasn't, quote unquote, aware or conscious of God really in a conscious way back then. But God had his hand in my life. So it wasn't just, in one sense, karma up until the point I realized him. Now, the Abrahamic faiths, they seem to have this concept of the devil or Satan, which many times we say the devotees, oh, it's Maya. But it seems to be somewhat different, because for them, there's an entity that's literally going around and say, whispering in people's ears, you should be against God, you should be doing demonic activities. And that's my question with Durga. Is she taking an active role? And sometimes you hear devotees say, when you're progressing very much in spiritual life and Krishna consciousness, she's like, she has to take you down, like she'll shoot the general. So she's a personality, and she's taking an active role to try to keep you in ignorance. However, it's not just, it seems like, is it just forgetfulness of Krishna, or actually going ahead and doing demoniac activities against Krishna? And I know you can say, well,
hold on. I think questions, once they reach a certain length, need to be trimmed, otherwise, or at least paused. Otherwise, we can't possibly keep them all in mind. So
yes.
Why don't we at least put the pause button on for a few moments and see what we've got already. The first thing is comparing different ideas from different traditions and cultures and religions can get dicey. There's not necessarily a one-to-one correspondence, and trying to say, oh, this equals this equals that, may not work. There may be some, what shall we say, shared understandings, and we may recognize that we're talking about, we're reading from similar pages, as it were, or that we're discussing, that we're in shared territory, but it may not exactly match. You try to match things one for one, from the Quran to the New Testament, or from the New Testament to the Bhagavad Gita, or from the Quran to these. You don't necessarily get a simple one-to-one correspondence on this or that idea or entity or narration. And sometimes you see it strained. You see commentators or interreligious explorers trying to match things up that don't really match. They sort of force it, and it doesn't always work so well. But we can recognize that theists have shared territory, and then there are similarities. And the demons, just as the demonic, they don't all agree with one another, but they share the territory of being demonic in their outlook, being greedy and lusty and so on. The details may differ, but the general orientation is similar. So we find that in fact, I was on an interreligious stage in Durban some years back. Indra Dumnamarj arranged for that during the Ratha Yatra. And the Muslim person, who was the most sort of turned on speaker, was saying it basically that the theists, the believers, should all get together. That we all share certain values, and we should, instead of going up against one another, we should all band together against the demonic. He was, he had a point there. Okay, now the next thing, Satan. Yes, Satan doesn't exactly map to material nature, or Durga, or because he's characterized in a certain way that's not an exact match. He's not an exact match. He's a fallen angel, and so on. Durga's not a fallen angel. So there are differences, and there are similarities also. We all recognize that there's some force that impels people to do evil, that instills or encourages rebellious thoughts in their minds. So there's something shared, and then there's difference. There are differences also. Now, what else what haven't I touched upon from your long set of questions so far?
If you don't mind, I first want to acknowledge that, yes, it might not be like for like, and you can say those are details, but you can say and agree that perhaps there is energy, a personality that is motivating or influencing people to do demonic activities. So is Durga actually taking or Maya actually taking an active role in trying to influence people to do demonic activities?
Yeah, through the mode of ignorance, or through the demonic nature. Material nature influences the living entities to act in low and degraded ways and in rebellious ways. Tanaham Drishata Kruran Sangsaration Niradhaman. So these things are there. It's not that without the touch of material nature, we don't display this kind of these symptoms. But it's by the touch of material nature. But material nature is according to our inclination. We want to be, it's our decision. We want to be independent. We want to be enjoyers. There's this great line in Milton where Satan says, better to reign in hell, to rule in hell, than to serve in heaven. So that's the essence of the demonic mentality. Better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is Maya or Durga only in control of the three modes, and she kind of just lets it be and then affects people's energy? Or what I'm trying to get at is and of course this is, I'm trying to, this is my hypothesis and trying to better understand it, is that our entire experience in this material world boils down to the three modes: karma, Krishna, and actually perhaps Maya, this perhaps living entity that is going on and taking an active role
It's
in
not that there's something independent, that there's Maya, and then there's the deity Maya is in charge of the three modes of material nature. Like we act through our energies. Even an ordinary girl, she acts by, she bats her eyelashes, she wears her clothes a certain way, she moves a certain way, she speaks in sweet tones or something. So it's through her, these are energies, the energy of motion, the energy of this, the energy of that, appealing to different senses. So, but she's a person at the same time. There's a person behind that. But it's manifested through things like dress, perfume, movements, and so on. So there's a personality behind the modes of material nature, but that personality acts through the modes.
Okay, so
Now that's not to say that Durga can't intervene. Kamsa, you're such a fool. The child that you want to kill is already born, so she can act, personally also. Both things are there.
in that case, though, she was acting as a devotee, and I guess
She's always a devotee. Shristi stati pralaya sadhana shakti reka chayeva yasya bhuvanani bibharti Durga. It's chanurupam api yasya chacheshtate sa. Govindamadi purusham taman bhajami. The Durga acts, it's chanurupa, in accordance with the desires of Krishna. Durga is not independent. That's a difference. Satan is supposed to be, a rebellious, fallen entity acting according to his own ideas, his own power. So he's viewed almost as a competitor, not almost, perhaps actually as a competitor to God. He has his fallen angels, and they're all sort of at war with the divine forces. So you get this picture of Satan as a competitor to God, or a rebellious force against God, whereas Durga is cooperative. She's like the shadow of the Lord. As a person moves, so the shadow moves. So it's Chanurupam. She's acting exactly according to Krishna's direction. Therefore, the gopis are praying to Katyayani, Durga, that you're very dear to Krishna. So please give us mercy. Let us have the service of being married to Krishna. So Durga is the faithful servant of the Lord. She has, Prabhupada says, a thankless task. A thankless task. But she's serving, just like the prison warden is serving. The prisoners aren't very happy about it, but he's acting in accordance with the government's wishes, or the government's arrangements, not independent.
So just a clarity for my understanding, then you're saying, yes, although she's a personality, the way she manifests in this material world is through her energies, which are the three modes. And these three modes are binding keep us in ignorance. And that's what, in that sense, that's what it is. And while she can, of course, personally come and speak to or influence jivas individually, for the most part, she doesn't. And her influence is through the three modes only.
Yeah, and also, now that I'm thinking about it, in Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva saw Krishna, and he saw the material energy of Krishna. What is that? Mayam Sadhu Yadapashrayam. Yaya Sammohito Jiva Trigunatmakam. Maybe those verses will appear. The Vyasadeva, in his trance of meditation, saw the personality of Godhead, and he saw the material energy, which was under the Lord's full control. Under the Lord's full control. Maya wasn't acting independently, acting according to Krishna's direction. That's what Vyasadeva saw. Bhakti yoga manasi samyak pranihite male apashyat purusham purnam mayam chatadapashrayam. He saw the Lord, and he saw the material energy acting under the control of the Lord.
Thank you. So in essence, Vyasadeva saw Durga, which is the material energy.
Yes.
And then if you could just clarify then, when I think it's in the 10th canto, it says Maya is one, and therefore there's Yoga Maya, and then it's just Maya is one. Maya's influence in the spiritual world is Yoga Maya, or in the spiritual aspect, and then Maya's influence in the material world is Mahamaya. So then is this Maya for both Yoga Maya and Mahamaya, then just Durga, and she has influence in the spiritual world or spiritual as well?
In the spiritual world, acting as Yoga Maya. In the material world, acting as Mahamaya.
Yes. Well, we know, for example, the gopis when they're having their leelas in the material are under Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya.
Yeah.
And the Pandavas.
That's the spiritual world also. When Krishna is in Vrindavan, that's the spiritual world.
Pandavas too. So his pure devotees are under Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya. But in essence, my question is, then this Maya in totality, including Yoga Maya, the energy of Yoga Maya and Mahamaya is Durga, and she is just this whole Maya energy of ignorance.
Durga, not just ignorance, but passion and goodness also. Trigunamayi, she's called Trigunamayi because she controls all three modes. The ignorance is very powerful in binding the conditioned souls, but passion is there, even goodness is under the control of Durga.
But Yoga Maya is transcendental ignorance. And I guess when I say ignorance, it's avidya, which is forgetfulness of Krishna, not, I guess, in the mode sense, but just forgetfulness of Krishna.
Yeah, yes. And yes, Yoga Maya is transcendental. Mahamaya is like the shadow of the Yoga Maya.
So Durga is all of that. She's the transcendental forgetfulness of Krishna, the material forgetfulness of Krishna, and the three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance, which binds the jiva into the material.
Yeah, Durga means fortress. The whole fortress of this material world is under Durga.
Thank you so much. I have much more, but I want to make sure I give others opportunity. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Okay. Now there's a couple of messages here. Let's see. All right, there's a couple of messages. Tulsi Priya asks, what about the personality Kali? Yeah, Kali is another form of material energy.
I was just thinking that maybe that's more analogous to Satan.
No, because Kali is also under the control of Krishna and acting obediently to Krishna. Not that Kali is, no. Again, when we try to pull one-to-one correspondences, you sort of run into difficulty.
Yes. I have another comment after this, but just to clarify, in the book of Job, there's the conversation between God and Satan, and Satan essentially asks for permission to go and inflict Job with all his plagues. So in my interpretation, I think it's a misinterpretation to say that Satan is an enemy. He may have been rebellious and whatever, but he's obviously, even in the Bible, he's seen to be under the control of the Lord, but people seem to forget about that somehow.
Well,
Anyways,
the Bible is not my area of expertise outside of one particular book,
mine
so
neither.
I won't venture to comment on Job and such things, or even on Satanology.
Yeah.
Um,
I
better
I'm
that we
sorry.
stick to our own. Better that we stick to our own knitting for the most part.
Um,
Yes.
I wanted to comment something else on what Athena was saying. I'm not sure if I completely understood where she was coming from, but it occurred to me while you were speaking that it seems that, we say that Maya is trying to, prevent people from going back to Krishna, but my understanding is that everything is based on reciprocation. So if we want to serve Krishna directly in a surrendered mood, that's under the influence of Yoga Maya. And if we want to serve ourselves, it's still serving Krishna in an indirect or perverted way because we're serving the material energy. And so Maha Maya is facilitating that. It's a perverted reciprocation based on our desires. It's not we're just sitting around little innocents and she's deciding to pick on us. It's all based on our desires. Is that a correct understanding?
Yeah. Yeah. We're under Maya because of our own. What is that? Anadi Bahirmukh Jeev, Bhagavanchakari. Because we've turned away from Krishna since time immemorial, we're under the control of Maya. Prabhupada said, just as a wayward child is put under the care of a strong, taskmaster.
Is there any, I'm seeming to recall that Prabhupada says that Maya, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe somebody can correct me, but that Durga Maya is trying very hard, is working to keep us away from Krishna if we're not committed and determined, but that when we surrender and we're full on surrendered, she stands before us with folded hands to help us.
Yeah. The Prabhupada presents Maya as essentially testing the conditioned souls.
Right.
If we're not, if we don't pass the test, we can't get in. But if we do get in, then all right, you defeated me. Very good. Maya becomes pleased also. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Prabeen wrote a question, direct message. One senior devotee was explaining and understanding. One Prabhupada disciple was a top distributor. He was distributing 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day. Later, due to his aging body, when he could not distribute books, he left the association of devotees. This is because there was no training in hearing, chanting, and when the body ages, one does not find happiness in hearing, chanting. Question: isn't the order of the Guru sufficient to protect one in Krishna consciousness? Or is it that one should do other things apart from the specifically mentioned order of the Guru to remain in Krishna consciousness? Well, first thing is that the order itself doesn't protect us. It's our engaging in the order of the Guru. When we're engaged in serving the order of the spiritual master, then we're Daivim Prakritim Ashrita, under the protection of divine energy. But if the Guru's order is there, but we don't follow it, then what can we expect? Then the next thing is that the Guru's order is not simply distribute books or go out and make life members or what have you. there are other instructions, beginning with Prabhupada said the most important instruction is to chant Hare Krishna every day, to chant 16 rounds, to follow the 4 regulative principles. This is what we agreed to at initiation. So those are also instructions, not just that I distribute books, but I don't follow the 4 regulative principles, or I don't chant 16 rounds, or I don't get up early in the morning, or I don't read, I don't take part in the kirtan. You know, all of these things are for helping us. Prabhupada explains that there are 2 tracks for our spiritual life, the Pancharatriki Vidhi and Bhagavad Vidhi. The Pancharatriki Vidhi means the rules and regulations, the activities of sadhana, deity worship, and so on. And then Bhagavad Vidhi means preaching. So both things are wanted. When the tracks are parallel, then the train runs nicely. But if one of the tracks is defective, or the chunk of track is missing, then there'll be difficulty. So the order of the spiritual master should be understood in depth and in breadth also. His instructions are wide and they're also deep. So we should follow fully. Something else? Let's see, there's a new message coming. Prabhin says, when the body ages, we could do hearing, chanting, but if we cannot do the specific order received, so specific order means, yeah, we may not, the spiritual master orders you do this or that, but then you get, confined to a hospital bed, or you get, some sort of thing that makes that order difficult or impossible to follow, then you have to adjust what can be done. That, all right, under the circumstances, I have to do this or I have to do that. But it should still be in the attitude of trying to carry out the instructions given by the spiritual master, and the spirit of the instructions, and as far as possible, the particular instruction. But just like our Vibhu Chaitanya Prabhu, he was asked by Srila Prabhupada to cook for the deities, so he was doing that. Actually, he was doing all the offerings for Krishna Balaram from the day the temple opened, and so much seva. But finally, he had arthritis. He had, he just couldn't carry on, so he could no longer cook. He was directing for some time, but he couldn't cook. And they had to have like 6 brahmacharis to replace him. But then he was sitting in the temple and giving Charanamrit. It's not that he said, all right, my life is over, I can't follow the order of the Guru. He continued to serve Srila Prabhupada and serve the Vaishnavas. So he was in the temple, and the devotees who were there remember the great affection with which he would distribute Charanamrit to all the devotees. And then when that also became impossible because of old age, then he was staying in the back of the temple, and not back of the temple, in his room behind the temple, and chanting Hare Krishna, hearing the classes over the radio. And he had little pictures of Krishna Balaram, Radha Shamsundar, Gaurnitai. He would decorate with flowers. So he kept serving. He didn't say, well, now I can't cook anymore, so I must be, I have to give up my life. I'm not following the order of the Guru. Let me continue to serve the lotus feet of my spiritual master according to my ability, down to the last breath. Is that okay? Okay. are Tulsi Priya and Chaitanya Bhav. Chaitanya, can't see. But it is just Chaitanya Bhav. Okay, why don't we hear from Chaitanya Bhav, who we don't hear from so much? Prabhu, you can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Please
Hare
accept my Maharaj, I had a question about so in the in Bhagavatam Mandasu Mandamatayo, so for Manda Bhagya, Srila Prabhupada translates it as unlucky. So I was just wondering if you could say something about the concept of luck in our philosophy, if what we think of that.
Yeah, here unlucky doesn't mean that the forces of chance have gone against us. Luck is not in the sense of gambler's luck or casino, what you think of as luck in the casino, not that luck, but misfortune and unfortunate. Fortune and misfortune. Bhagya means good fortune. And Manda Bhagya means misfortune, or that they're unfortunate. So unfortunate doesn't just mean that my luck's gone bad. It means I'm not acting in Krishna consciousness, and therefore I'm bringing misfortune upon myself. That's the meaning. It's not chance. It's not that idea of luck. Unlucky doesn't, like who was it? Jarasandha. He attacked what was it, Mathura, so many times. And each time he was roundly defeated by Krishna, but his friends and advisors would say, oh, you just got unlucky. So he would go out there and fight again. So that was foolish advice. Anyway, it's not chance, but it's according to our mentality, and yes, our acting in Krishna consciousness or acting outside of Krishna consciousness. That's what ultimately Subhagya and Mandabhagya are about. Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj. So our own karma has probably our previous karma has a role to play in that.
Oh, yes.
And as Athena Mataji is writing, maybe the mercy that we receive is also part of that, especially to become Subhagya.
Yes, one becomes instantly fortunate or at once fortunate by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, by the mercy of the spiritual master. Those who are unfortunate become fortunate by Krishna's mercy.
Yes. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. We have a question from Mukunda Choran.
My question is regarding being lucky or unlucky. I was speaking to one, somehow it came up, and I said that while we don't want to be the instruments of people's bad karma, still, that everything is arranged that I can't hurt someone or harm someone that doesn't have, some that doesn't deserve it in some sense. And the response, this devotee's response is that goes against the idea of free will, because if I can only harm people who deserve it, then that actually kind of limits my scope of people I can actually interact with in certain ways. And
Your free will, you can attack them, but if they're not destined to fall to your attack, you won't be able to do anything. You still have free will. Just like, who was that? Jarasandha. He attacked Mathura. There was no question of his getting anywhere. He couldn't succeed, but he could misuse his free will and attack again.
And then this devotee also said that they had heard, and I wasn't, that this devotee had heard from a sannyasi that there's still such a place as wrong place, wrong time, that there's some scope, but I wasn't aware.
There's definitely a wrong place, wrong time. but in what context? There is, Krishna says, adesha kala patrecha, giving to charity at the wrong time, to the wrong person, in the wrong place. So there are suitable and unsuitable places, sure.
But not in the sense of unlucky, wrong place, wrong time. I didn't have this coming karmically, but somehow or other there's some scope for people's. That was this conception.
According to karma, you can wind up in the wrong place at the wrong time. These people who are in someone's in a car accident. No, it was his bad luck. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But according to his karma, it's exactly the place he was meant to be in.
So you can say as an absolute rule that no one, like, there's certainly a clear-cut rule that no one gets any worse than they deserve. There's no scope for that, right?
No.
Yeah. To be clear.
We may not know who can trace all that infinitely complex karmic background. That's not possible. But we know that according to their karma, they're getting some result, and that karma can be mitigated or dissolved by bhakti yoga.
Thank you.
Something else? There's a hand at Tulsi Priya's.
Yes, I didn't take it down the first time, but I do have a question.
Yes.
I was just thinking today, sometimes we hear people say when something bad happens to a person or somebody wrongs another person, that they ruin their life. Somebody, X person ruined Y person's life. Or something unfortunate happens to that person and their life was ruined. And for some reason, whenever I hear that, I get extremely bothered. And it came to me today, what was bothering me about it is that your life isn't ruined. That is your life. If the bad thing happens, that's your life. And how you choose to respond to it, it determines whether you come out ahead or you succumb to whatever the bad thing is. But I was just thinking, is that a correct understanding? Can a person's life be ruined if you have karma, and if you the quality of one's life depends on one's response to what happens to a person? So is it possible, is it strictly true to say somebody's life can be ruined? Meaning it implies that there's an alternative, that if such and such thing didn't happen, everything would be great. But how can we say that such and such thing shouldn't have happened? Because it did.
Yeah. I recall an incident where Peter Burwash, the tennis pro, think someone cheated him in business, and he was quite upset. And Prabhupada said, why blame the instrument of your karma? Why blame the instrument of your own karma? So it gives us an enlightening way to look at what's going on. It's not just that some evil person did something to me, or even that, or that my luck went wrong. But according to my karma, I'm getting what I deserve. From that point of view, devotees can be tolerant. They can be tolerant that this person is just, he's criticizing me, or he stole my money, or he stole my girlfriend, or whatever. But he's the instrument of my karma. So why should I be disturbed? Why should I be disturbed? Why blame the instrument of my karma? Is that okay?
Yes. I've also read, I'm not sure, it might have been Prabhupada or Srila Bhaktivinoda, that if you suffer some sort of bad reaction at the hands of someone else, and you say that person is going to get karma for what they did.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
If someone wrongs me and I say that person is going to get bad karma for what they did, I have to share in the bad karma that they get, because you're not supposed to blame another person. You shouldn't have that sort of, vengeful attitude. Have you heard that?
Yeah, that's the discussion between the cow and Parikshit Maharaj, or the bull and Parikshit Maharaj, that the bull is reluctant. Why should I even mention the person who's done this? That would be, yes, then I'm misunderstanding. Excuse me just for a moment.
Sure.
Or even the devotee sees that others have done this, but it's instead of being vengeful, he's compassionate. Just as Jesus Christ, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. So that spirit, or Haridas Thakur, Nityananda Prabhu, that you, all right, you've attacked us, but please chant Hare Krishna. Not that you've attacked me, okay. Burn in hell. Still, they're compassionate. Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo. The tolerant, compassionate, the good qualities of the devotees are so brilliant. What is that? Karunika. Ajata Shatravat Shanta. No, they don't see anyone as enemy. Even Prahlad, he's praying to Lord Nrsingadev, if you want to give me a blessing, please deliver my father. Deliver your father? He tortured you in so many ways. Yes, please deliver him. This is the compassionate nature of a devotee. And Praveen has posted the verse. Dharmam pravishi dharmagya dharmosi visharupadrik yad adharma kritas tanam suchakasyapi tadbhavet. The king said, oh, you who are in the form of a bull, you know the truth of religion. And you're speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of irreligious acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. You are no other than the personality of religion. I think Suchakasya, is that giving news of who the perpetrator is? I don't have the word for word in front of me. But in any case, yes, thank you for that, Praveen. Anything else?
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, Mukunda.
This one might be this might be annoying because it's a bit of a speculation, or it is. It's my own speculation, but I wanted to know if you think there's anything to it. Regarding karma, I was thinking about if one takes up austerities, such as fasting, or if a Brahmana takes up any kind of austerity, intentionally lives in a less comfortable way, gives up certain things, they are taking on willingly some discomfort. And I was thinking that if how much pleasure and pain I'm going to experience in my life is already set, then a Brahmana or a devotee willingly taking up austerity isn't, in one sense, isn't willingly, taking up discomfort, but is kind of redirecting. If I'm going to have a set amount of pain or discomfort, distress in my life, then if I willingly take up austerity, then I'm really just kind of redirecting it in certain ways where the pain will then be Krishna conscious, or will kind of not distract me from Krishna consciousness. Is that valid at all? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm destined to undergo a certain amount of trouble. So rather than trying to fight against the trouble and just have happiness, let me accept it. Let me accept it. Or even let me, yes, the tapasvis, let me go out looking for it, essentially. And that will be good for me. Yes, that's there.
And then you could also say that it's redirecting it, and therefore any austerity I avoid or discomfort I avoid now is going to come in the future. So anything I take up now will kind of, not that that's the point, but remove it in the future anyway.
Real thing is Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
The best tapasya is Krishna consciousness. The best gyan. What is that? Vasudeva Param Gyanam Vasudeva Param Tapa. The best approach to austerity, to charity, to mental speculation, to everything is the devotional service of the Lord. Why perform some less effective form of austerity? This is the real duty. Let me spread it, and then it will benefit me, it will benefit others. Is that okay? Anything else? Going once, going twice, yes.
Well, one quick thing. Then I don't remember the verse in Bhagavad Gita, but where I think it's mentioning demon, it's demonic, or maybe it's just mode of ignorance, but ignorance, or it's demonic to take up austerity, which is not recommended in scriptures, but it tortures the self and the super soul dwelling within.
Yes.
So you aren't even that you aren't, taking on extra pain. I guess in one sense you're going to experience that pain at some point in your life, but it's demonic just because it's a distraction from, or
because it's not done according to shastric direction. Shastra vidimutrija vartate kamakara nasasiddham avapnoti sukham nibbana. The austerity should be done according to shastric direction. Otherwise, it will not be good. Is that okay? All right, I think we can stop for the evening. We're at 7:58. That's close enough to 8 o'clock. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. My apologies for cutting off a few times today.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Maharaj.
people.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thanks to all.
Thank you,
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna. All right. Haribol.
Hi, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Kamalini.
Jai. Great
Hare-
discussion.
Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Haribol.